The crisp morning air was alive with the hum of tourists gathering around Buckingham Palace, cameras flashing and voices chattering with excitement. The royal guards, dressed immaculately in their red tunics and tall bearskin hats, stood stoically in their positions, embodying the age-old tradition of unwavering discipline. Among the crowd was Karen, a middle-aged woman with an air of entitlement that was hard to miss. Her loud voice carried over the crowd as she complained about everything, from the chilly weather to the crowd blocking her view. She had traveled to London on a whim and was determined to make this visit to the palace an unforgettable experience, but not in the way anyone expected. Karen's sharp eyes scanned the guards, focusing on one in particular, a young man standing tall with a solemn expression. His rigid posture and unwavering gaze fascinated her, but not in a respectful way. To her, his silence was a challenge, a game she was eager to win. "He's just standing there like a statue. Bet he wouldn't even flinch if I tried to make him laugh," she sneered to a nearby tourist, who shifted uncomfortably and moved away. Her antics escalated quickly. Karen stepped closer to the guard, waving her hands in front of his face, mocking his steadfast expression. The crowd began to take notice, with some onlookers pulling out their phones to record the scene. Emboldened by the attention, Karen grew bolder. "Oh, come on! You're just a guy in a fancy costume. Lighten up!" she jeered. Despite her relentless taunting, the guard remained unmoved, his discipline as strong as the centuries-old traditions he represented. Karen's frustration turned to irritation, and she crossed her arms, glaring at him. The crowd began to murmur, some disapproving, others watching with morbid curiosity. But Karen wasn't finished. She was determined to elicit a reaction, no matter what. Then, in a shocking move, Karen reached out and slapped the guard's arm, a smug grin spreading across her face as gasps erupted from the crowd. The slap wasn't hard, but the sheer audacity of her action stunned everyone. What Karen didn't anticipate, however, was that her actions had not only crossed a line, but had set in motion consequences she could never have foreseen. The slap echoed faintly, but the impact on the crowd was deafening. Gasps turned into whispers, and the energy shifted from amusement to a tense anticipation. The royal guard remained in his position, his face unchanged, as if nothing had happened. Karen, emboldened by the lack of immediate retaliation, smirked and turned to the onlookers. "See? Told you these guys are just props. Can't even defend themselves," she said with a mocking laugh. But within moments, the situation began to take an unexpected turn. A second guard, positioned nearby, stepped forward. His expression was as unreadable as his colleagues, but his presence was commanding. "Madam, you have just assaulted a member of the royal guard. This is a violation of the law," he stated firmly, his voice cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. Karen's smirk faltered. She rolled her eyes, dismissing him with a wave of her hand. "Oh, please, it was just a little tap. Don't be so dramatic," she scoffed. But the guard remained resolute, and his authoritative demeanor caused the crowd to shift uncomfortably. Several tourists began recording, sensing that something significant was about to unfold. The second guard signaled discreetly, and within moments, a uniformed officer from the nearby palace security detail appeared. Karen's bravado began to waver as the officer approached her. "Madam, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside," he said calmly but firmly. "What? Are you serious?" Karen exclaimed, her voice rising in indignation. "It was just a joke. Don't you people have a sense of humor?" The officer's gaze didn't falter. "Ma'am, the royal guards are a symbol of our nation's heritage and are to be treated with respect. Your actions were not only disrespectful, but also unlawful. Please cooperate." The crowd watched intently, some nodding in agreement, while others recorded the unfolding drama. Karen, realizing she was outnumbered, crossed her arms defiantly. "This is ridiculous. I'm an American citizen. You can't do this to me," she protested. The officer maintained his composure. "Regardless of your nationality, you are subject to the laws of this country while you are here. Please follow me." Karen's face flushed with a mix of embarrassment and anger, and she reluctantly complied, her previous confidence replaced with visible discomfort. As she was escorted away, the guard she had slapped remained motionless, his face as calm as ever. But what Karen didn't realize was that her actions had sparked a chain reaction. While she believed the matter would end here, the consequences of her behavior were far from over. As Karen was escorted to a discreet area near the palace gates, the crowd continued buzzing with reactions. Videos of the incident had already started circulating on social media, with captions like "Karen versus Royal Guard" and "Disrespect at the Palace." Karen, unaware of the growing online storm, was still fuming. "This is completely blown out of proportion. I barely touched him," she protested to the officer, who remained calm but firm. Meanwhile, inside the palace, word of the incident had reached higher authorities. It wasn't every day that a tourist disrupted the decorum of the royal guards, and the situation warranted a measured response. The palace's media team began preparing a statement, emphasizing the importance of respect toward the guards, who stood as symbols of honor and tradition. Karen, on the other hand, was growing increasingly agitated as she was questioned about her actions. "I was just trying to have a bit of fun." "Isn't that what tourists do here?" she argued. The officer shook his head. "Ma'am, the royal guards are not performers for your entertainment. They represent the monarchy and are responsible for maintaining order. Your actions were not only disrespectful, but could also be seen as a security threat." Her face paled at the mention of security threat. "Security threat? You're joking, right?" she stammered, realizing the gravity of the situation. "I didn't mean any harm." The officer didn't waver. "Intent doesn't change the impact, ma'am. Your behavior disrupted the peace, disrespected the guards, and caused unnecessary commotion. There will be consequences." As the conversation continued, a palace representative approached the scene. Dressed impeccably, he introduced himself as a liaison for the monarchy's public relations. "Ma'am, while we understand that visitors may not always be aware of our customs, your actions have caused significant offense. As this is a matter of public interest now, we will be addressing it accordingly," he said with measured authority. Karen's heart sank. She hadn't realized the situation had escalated to this level. Public interest? What does that mean? She asked nervously. The representative didn't elaborate, but his tone suggested that Karen's day was about to get much worse. At the same time, social media was exploding with opinions. Some users condemned Karen's actions, calling them entitled and disrespectful. Others turned the situation into memes, mocking her behavior. Still, a small minority defended her, claiming the response was excessive. The incident had sparked a debate, and Karen was at the center of it all, though she still didn't fully grasp the scale of her actions. As the palace staff finalized their decision, Karen was left to wait, her confidence now entirely replaced with anxiety. What she thought was a harmless act of fun had turned into a full-blown scandal, and the consequences were beginning to weigh heavily on her. Little did she know, the resolution to this incident would take a turn she could never have anticipated. As Karen waited, surrounded by a tense silence, the palace representative returned with an air of finality. He was accompanied by another guard, this one without a ceremonial hat, who held a formal letter. Karen's stomach churned as the representative began to speak. "Ma'am," he said, his voice calm yet authoritative, "the monarchy prides itself on maintaining a legacy of respect, dignity, and tradition. Your actions today not only disrespected that legacy, but have also caused a significant public uproar. After careful consideration, we've decided on a course of action that we believe is both fair and educational." Karen braced herself, her mind racing through possible penalties. A fine? Jail time? Deportation? "You will issue a public apology," the representative continued. "This apology will acknowledge the gravity of your actions, express regret for the disrespect shown to the royal guards, and serve as a reminder for all visitors to treat these men and women with the dignity they deserve." Karen sighed in relief, thinking she had escaped with just an apology. But the representative wasn't finished. "In addition," he added, "you will be required to spend 2 days shadowing the guards, under supervision, to better understand their role and the discipline they uphold. This will include standing at the post for designated periods, without moving. Karen's eyes widened in disbelief. Stand still? Like them? She stammered. Yes, precisely, the representative replied. We hope this experience will instill a newfound respect for their service. Refusal to comply will result in legal repercussions, as your actions today constitute public misconduct. Karen had no choice but to agree. The next day, dressed in plain clothing provided by the palace, she stood outside the gates, flanked by 2 royal guards. Tourists gathered around, snapping photos of the unusual sight. A civilian standing still beside the guards, her face a mixture of discomfort and reflection. The hours dragged on, and Karen quickly realized the sheer physical and mental discipline required to perform the guard's duties. As she stood under the scorching sun, she thought about the man she had slapped. He hadn't moved, hadn't reacted, and now she understood the tremendous restraint it took to uphold such composure. By the end of the 2 days, Karen's perspective had shifted entirely. She had faced the jeers of tourists, the weight of scrutiny, and the physical toll of standing motionless. But most importantly, she had learned humility. On her final day, Karen gave her public apology, standing in front of cameras and reporters. Her voice was steady, though tinged with genuine regret. I want to sincerely apologize to the Royal Guard and the people of this country for my actions. I disrespected a tradition I didn't fully understand, and I've since realized how wrong I was. These men and women dedicate themselves to service, and they deserve nothing but our admiration and respect. The apology was broadcast widely, and surprisingly, the public responded positively. Many praised the palace for handling the situation with grace and for using it as a teachable moment. Karen, though initially humiliated, left the experience a changed person. As she boarded her flight back home, she looked at the palace one last time through the airport window. What had started as an act of entitlement had turned into a lesson she would carry with her forever. Sometimes, life's most humbling moments come when we least expect them.